Sometimes, when you go digging just deep enough and remember to say your prayers to Big Josh,
give me a break!
You find the perfect weird game nobody's ever heard of to use for baffling out-of-context B-roll. And if you're really lucky, it's even a game that's yet to be featured in a Did You Know Gaming video you saw 5 years ago.
Drop of silver approaches the stage.
Genshi no Kotoba is a 2001 Japan-only PS2 adventure game that was seemingly spawned out of some obscure hole in Sony's basement. Is what I'd say if it didn't actually have quite a notable name attached. At this critical juncture between Azel Panzer Dragoon RPG and the Xbox action oddity Phantom Dust, it would seem game design legend Yukio Futatsugi had made a brief stop at Sony to direct this absolute curiosity of an adventure game, which places you in the role of a little green man who crash lands on a prehistoric Earth and must learn to communicate with the inhabitants of a local village in order to find the scattered fragments of his ship's power source in order to return home. Like some other games we've gone over, this one seems to have had a very quiet release. There's little coverage of it on the Japanese net, and only a handful of middling reviews, but someone did make a very simple walkthrough. For now, there's not much to do but dive into this wacky little world. It always helps when a game makes a strong first impression, and that strength is maintained going into the opening cutscene, where we get to see some funny little alien guys designed by Panzer Dragoon series artist Kentaro Yoshida. The story begins with our very own green little man facing the greatest danger: executive oversight and potential loss of employment.
文化レベルの調査である。文化レベルは C 程度と予想されるが、言語を有する原住民が生息しているって。人の話を聞いとんのかね、君。ちなみに、今回の任務に失敗したら君、クビだからね。心してかかるように。
そんな話聞いてないですよ。
To make sure he stays on task, his boss is sending along a little oversight anger orb guy. This has the opposite effect. And just like that, startlingly quickly, we're in gameplay. Genshi no Kotoba is not a particularly complex adventure game. In fact, it might be one of the simplest I've ever played in its actual construction. There's basic overworld exploration, but the core of the game lies in what's introduced in this very first challenge: learning and communicating in a foreign language. When we crashed our ship, we inadvertently injured one of the planet's local inhabitants, and Alien Starfleet's mission being one of peace, we've gotta fix our own mess. The first conversation enforces the sort of slow and steady learning of the basics you might expect. In mechanical terms, the local language is conveyed in pictogram, or emoji, whichever one you'd like to call it. You've got a wide array of icons, each establishing an initial core meaning. Affirmative, negative, what, why, how, have you seen, where did you see, going, doing, you get the picture. After selecting that basis for your sentence, you may also select one of several more contextual icons if you want to be specific. So if you want to say, yes, medicine, or no, not evil imperialist alien out to devastate your homeland. Meaning is loose and interpretive based on context, but as in this first conversation, the general order of proceedings tends to be clear enough, and characters can be pretty generous about how they'll interpret what you're trying to say, based on whether it makes enough intuitive sense. After just a few exchanges, we get our injured friend to accept our advanced alien medicine. Which does lead to us having to clear up our situation with the locals not long after, but that goes surprisingly well. They even agree to help us look around for our skyboat's scattered energy source, the Rinkoseki. I'm not sure if these are batteries or... well, it'd be pretty depressing if this advanced spacefaring alien civilization is yet to discover renewable energy. I mean, look at this bulky thing. Can't you just fit some solar panels on there? Well, I guess we are also employed under some sort of company structure, so maybe Genshi no Kotoba isn't presenting a very utopian, idealized future. Or is it the past? Jesus, I'm overthinking this. And that's it, basically. The game works on a chapter-based structure, and every chapter opens new zones and introduces new characters. Exploration itself remains the same from start to end, traveling around to different territories of the island and looking for new items to get and characters to talk to. There are no threats, no ticking clocks, and no environmental puzzles. The closest you get are a handful of scavenger hunts, but those are few and far between. There's an inventory, but it's only accessible in dialogue, no using rubber chickens or swapping busts with eggplants here. In short, Genshi no Kotoba's gameplay is less of a central focus and more of an attempt at a unique way of conveying a world and cast. It's a relatively bold move for its era, placing the game closer to something like Flower, Sun, and Rain than to, say, Tulip. On one hand, it means the world doesn't feel all that dynamic, but on the other hand, it means progressing through the game's core narrative is, at almost all times, pretty painless and unobtrusive, and the game does compensate for that lack of mechanical dynamism with offering constantly changing character positions and interactions based on story flags. It can get a little more trying in the later chapters when you have to do more backtracking through larger chunks of the map, and could maybe benefit from having more of the load times cut down. Every fade out and fade in is a bit long, and the cutaways to the world map between zones can feel a bit extra as a result. But I'd be lying if I said Genshi no Kotoba was ever a particularly abrasive game to play through. It was more than manageable for the vast majority of my playthrough. It all adds up to a game that's pretty obviously aimed at a fairly young age group. There's a degree of Japanese dialogue in the game, but it's in the minority compared to how much time you spend wandering its environments and interacting with its odd cast of characters. It's a kid's game, but one with enough effort put into it to strike a chord with older players too. And all of it is pretty heavily bolstered by its very unique sense of aesthetics. There really isn't quite a word that describes Genshi no Kotoba better than clay-like. Its character models are all very blobby and textureless, discarding detail in favor of large, characteristic silhouettes. These designs are likely to be a bit divisive depending on the person, but I was pretty endeared to them. I think what really helps them is how active they are. The voice work and animation in Genshi no Kotoba is just as bouncy and bizarre as the rest of the game. And it makes all of it click together really well. Our mean green little guy is one of the most obvious examples of this, with his huge bulbous head and flabby gum-like little arms. The way he's always trudging around, his shoulders totally slack and his arms loosely flapping in front of him. It's just so immediately characterful and funny to look at that it's near impossible to hate this guy. And that same energy carries into his conversation animations. At the start of the game, he is absolutely terrified. He's just screwed up so bad, and now he's stuck here with all these big angry dudes yelling at him in a language he can barely follow. You're always hearing him complain in the opening scenes, but now that he actually has to face the consequences of his actions, the guy is shaking in his boots. But there's some actual development here. As he gets closer to the villagers and more comfortable speaking their language, he takes on a much more casual and confident approach, belting out and like it's his second language, which I guess it is technically. But then other times, like when he just really wants someone to just give him some info already and is totally fed up, he really starts to groan, like... Some of the more darkly funny stuff comes when he gets totally beat by something and just becomes visibly fatigued, head bobbing in the air behind him, barely holding himself together. Not only does this affect his walking animations, he yet again gains an entire new set of dialogue animations. The guy is clearly freaking dying. All these visual strengths are just as present in the NPCs. We're all so bizarre and bobbing with energy that it's hard not to come to enjoy spending time with them, just for seeing what kind of goofy stuff they'll do next. Within the confines of the game's dialogue system, none of them are exactly deep characters, but they almost all get a thing to note them by. Whether it's Granny's funny wide mouth she dumps way too much drink in, the chieftain's massive, imposing stature and tendency to excitedly proclaim his love for his wife, the weird, scrangly, social outcast old guy everyone calls a poop man, or even the village gate guard, who turns out to have a very deep love for flowers and, well, some extra duties that someone's gotta attend to. You'll find some reason to come back to talk to everyone a few times per chapter, getting a helping hand figuring out where to go or what to do next from our green alien's, girlfriend, I guess. Forming quick plans of action with the clever little sister of the village's buff warrior Amazonas, or trading items with a somewhat peculiar trading shop guy. Nobody ever feels too left out, and they're all fun enough to spend just a bit of time with every now and then. Of course, the finishing touch on all of this is the game's music, which perfectly nails its cutesy, cartoon sci-fi comedy vibe. The only other video game soundtrack I've ever seen referred to as clay-sounding is the Neverhoods, but I'd say Genshi no Kotoba finds an entirely unique sound that manages to somehow fit a similar sort of vibe. Always light, upbeat, and playful, and coming up with unique themes for every single location and character in the entire game. The worst thing that could have happened in this game was having one droning, repetitive dialogue theme you hear for every single conversation, and thank God they wholly averted that and then some. It's hard for me to pick out any favorites, but I always enjoy the odd, heavy vocalizations of the Chief's theme. Or the odd, quirky little twists and turns of the trading shop guy's theme. Or the village elder's theme, that in no uncertain terms just perfectly captures her weird elder vibe. I've been playing the soundtrack throughout this video, and will be playing it throughout the rest, so you should have enough to decide how you feel about it. I think it rocks. It seems like it was composed by a Kiyohito Komatsu. Doesn't seem like they have any other video game credits, so I guess it's kinda like Soichi Terada. Just a professional musician that Sony had the connections to get. That was pretty common in this gen. Oh, I also really like the menus. You don't have much reason to poke at them, but I like that the crude art style carries over into the UI design. They totally nailed absolutely everything about how this game should look and how it should sound. So, what happens in it? Well, the answer may shock you, but not all that much. Not in a bad way, though. Spoilers, I guess. The most action-packed chapters of Genshi no Kotoba actually come very early on. Every chapter faces our guy with a new desperate ordeal he must overcome. After spending all of Chapter 2 warming up to the village elder to perform a ceremony to figure out where one of his Rinkoseki fell, Chapter 3 deals with the consequences of inadvertently polluting the natural environment, one of the local animals having swallowed it and turned into a... thing. Things get hairy for a spell when the villagers find out this is basically his fault, but on seeing his will to best the beast and right his own wrongs, they end up cooling down and giving him a shot at making good on that, leading to a pretty funny little scene.
ちゃんとついてきてるのかな。もしもーし、早く出てきてよー。シュレンバー。
And from here on, well, yeah, that's kind of where the big action ends. The rest of Genshi no Kotoba is pretty relaxed slice of life on the island, while solving much less dramatic but no less equally odd conundrums. The chapter after this follows our alien dude's trials and tribulations, and acquiring honey from a hive of very violent bees, to trade for the Rinkoseki acquired by the local chef, of course. And the chapter after that... oh man, you're not prepared for this one. I don't know if anything can prepare you for this one. Chapter 5 tracks his journey into learning the ways of the Poop Man. Like last time, the Rinkoseki landed in the hands of a local. This time, the crazy old guy living just outside of town, rejecting their rules and ways of life. He will only hand it over in exchange for a butterfly. Not just any butterfly, though. It has to be one of the fancy ones that glows outside after dark. In the process of figuring out where butterflies are, our alien guy learns a bit about the village's history and culture, the religious shrine located higher up the mountain, and even the...
G.I.A.N.T.E.G.G
I've forgotten to note at any previous point in this script. Long ago, the village inhabitants traveled from afar, following a bolt of rainbow that struck this mountain's peak, forming the giant egg. The egg houses their guardian, who watches over them all, and the butterflies in the shrine outside are there to ensure the guardian's long and peaceful rest. Should the egg ever hatch, that will signal the end of their days on this island. That's all well and good, but we need some butterflies, and we're not allowed in here at night until we do the shrine maiden a favor. The flowers around the shrine are wilting, and she's got no idea how to save them. Of course, she's watering them, and they've got plenty of sun, and she's giving them as much love as she can. What could be the secret? Poop! Learning from the village's resident flower expert, we discover the art of fertilization. Unfortunately, he's already gathered up all the village poop, and this is his poop here. He gathered his own damn poop with his own 2 hands. He's not handing this poop over to anyone. It's up to us, of our own devices, to travel the lengths of the island until we can find the one generous soul who takes us seriously, doesn't laugh at us and call us Poop Man, and is brave enough to offer their own... Yeah, we end up just having to tell him what we need the poop for. And he's like, oh, well, I've already mixed it with some soil. You can take it if you want. And with that, the saga of the Poop Man concludes. Good night, Poop Man. May the world never have need of your services again. In the aftermath, his dubiously aged human girlfriend comes in to ask some questions about his background, his future plans, and any risks involved with him staying on their world. We get our 2 options laid down here. He either gets his ship back up and running, or hope he can make the world's biggest ever SOS to call for some help. One of these seems more feasible. After that epic saga, the story concludes in a relatively low-key way, as our green-gray has to navigate a calamitous interspecies love triangle, overcoming the seemingly endless tasks delivered by the local diva in order to gain access to her rare ice flowers, and deliver them to his true love, so she can come up with a cool song for the music festival and win him that last Rinkoseki. Alas, by the end of this music festival, our little guy is barely holding out. The atmosphere is toxic to him, and it's taking its toll on his health. He's got to say his goodbyes now and make his way home, but it's not long before things take a turn for the worse. His friend? Girl? Love interest? I really don't want to think too deeply about what relationship these two have. In search of some kind of medicine that will let him safely remain on their planet together, ends up in a position of absolute peril, dangling from a branch far too high in this deep crevice for anyone to reach her. Why nobody considers just standing to catch her as she falls, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, look at you, Chief. You're totally built. As expected, our alien guy has to make a big choice. He's only got enough fuel for a short flight. He either takes his ride home, or uses his last flight to save the life of a dear companion. Our floating anger orb... I haven't mentioned this guy much either, have I? Well, he's great and I love him. Anyway, he makes one last request. Oh man, you've been throwing me for a real loop through this whole thing, you know that? I swear every little darn thing's a whole disaster when you're involved. Even that girl being in the trouble she's in is your fault, ain't it? Boy, if I could put her in my shoes, my whole existence is being pissed off with you. You could not even believe how much I've cursed my luck to have ever been fated to meet you. And yet, here we are. We came this far. Together. Ah, heck. Guess I ought to follow your lead all the way to the end then. You know, just once. Just this one time, I want you to show me your cool side. And so we shall. Here's our cool side, Anger Orb.
ドゥブドゥブクッチョ
ドゥブドゥブクッチョ
ドゥブクッチョラバドンゴ
ドゥバ
ピーポユンバンパオルガンタドゥブクッチョマーニャアーゴラバラピーポ
ドゥバドゥブクッチョ
ヌンバドンゴラバヌンバラピドゥブドゥヌンバドゥブクッチョババドゥ
チュルムイゲルクトムチュルムイジチヌバザルザピーポ
ゲルクチュルムイ
ニャンボマーニャチャボウパゲルクトムチュルムイドゥブドゥブゲルクトムチュルムイドゥブドゥブゲルクトムチュルムイドゥブドゥブゲルクトムチュルムイドゥブドゥブゲルクトムチュルムイドゥブドゥブゲルクトムチュルムイドゥブドゥブゲルクトムチュルムイドゥブドゥブゲルクトムチュルムイドゥブドゥブゲルクトムチュルムイドゥブドゥブゲルクトムチュルムイ
This game rules, honestly. There's no particularly big takeaway to have with Genshi no Kotoba, but it's not really built to be a big game. It's a short little adventure that gets you thinking about ideas of mutual connection and coexistence, and that's rad enough for me to be into it. There's a lot of minor technical issues with how the game is laid out, but my favorite games to do videos on here are ones where I can confidently say I've never quite played anything else like them. And that's definitely a phrase that applies to this wacky little alien caveman adventure. That's all I've really got to say for this one. If you want to stick around after the Patreon link, I'll just let the credits roll for you. They're pretty funny, and I enjoy all the bits of art you get to see. Catch you next time, where I may be talking about Tokimeki Memorial Drama Series Volume 1, or may not. I don't know, we'll see.